So it seems like I have a quorum. We can start. Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Thursday, October 3rd Economic Development Committee. So we call the meeting to order and roll call.
Committee Member Kane.
Here.
Committee Member Charles is not here. Committee Member Chasty is not here.
He's parking.
He's parking, great. Committee Member Goldman. Here. Committee Member Sala, I think, is also on her way. Committee Member Tiedemann.
Here.
And Chair Montag.
Here. Okay, so you said there's someone in the parking lot?
Robert Chasty is currently parking, apparently.
Do we want to entertain waiting?
He could be parking.
If not,
In
we'll
this
just...
town, parking is a challenge.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and start. So public comments, or anyone who would like to address the committee on an item that's not on the agenda?
Cool character.
Hello, Albany resident Jennifer Hansen Romero, volunteer president, Solano Avenue Association. Just wanted to say we had a fantastic mixer last night at Little Star Pizza, which is something we do a first Wednesday of the month mixers in coordination with the Albany Chamber of Commerce. They've been very well attended mixers, lots of people marketing, communicating, chatting with each other. Last night, I felt fortunate to meet both Mark Williams and Christina Molina from the County of Alameda's Assessor's Office, who introduced themselves to me to let me know that they were looking for ways that they could help support our independently owned businesses in Albany, wanted to know what they could do for us, what kind of things that we could connect on. In fact, Mark Williams is also with AC Transit, a director ward in the board of directors. So I am starting communications with them and hope to possibly bring them to next month's meeting because I don't think they were available for tonight's meeting. That and also Yvette, and I'm not sure if this one made it to the agenda, but there's a person who works with the city of Berkeley. Her name is Yvette, and she helps businesses who might be exiting due to retirement or whatever the case might be, and she helps convert these into co-op businesses for their employees. So I'd like to also eventually get her here to speak to the group and see what we can do. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
I think we may have skipped the minutes.
Oh, sorry. Approval of minutes, item number 2. This is for June 20th.
No, September.
Oh, sorry, so I'm looking at the old one. I'm looking at the minutes. Yes, approval of minutes of September 5th. Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm probably an automatic abstention because I wasn't here, but whatever the
I still think you can vote on it.
procedures are.
You can still vote, but
Yeah, you can still
oftentimes
vote.
people don't.
With that, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to announcements. 4-1, Solano Pop-Up Parklet.
All right, in celebration of Parking Day, Albany Recreation hosted a pop-up parklet in front of Mr. Dewey's Cashew Creamery and Souvenir Coffee back on September 20th. The location where parklet approval has been granted. The event was a success, and we're waiting for the applicants to secure funding for construction for a permanent parklet. For 1106 Solano Avenue, that's the Montero's location. A custom sofa shop has set up shop in the old Montero space at the corner of Solano and San Pablo.
What kind of a shop?
Custom sofas. They apparently have a location on Grand Avenue in Oakland.
They sell couches?
Yes.
Custom, apparently.
Custom couches.
I stand corrected.
Next door, it seems like La Crema has at least reduced their hours. They haven't been open for lunch. We haven't checked out if they're open for dinner, so I don't know if anyone else has. Gotcha. So something may or may not be up with La Crema. And then 1175 Solano, we've had
That's the former Little Star, former
former Cafe Eugene, former La Cantina, what's that called? Something.
Cantina
del Sol.
Yeah.
Is going to continue being a Mexican restaurant now. It seems like Los Moles will be putting a taqueria in the space, probably hoping to open in the next 3 to 4 months. I don't know if anyone has tried Los Moles, but they have a good reputation. They're in Emeryville. We had catering from them once that was very good. Oh, they have one in El Cerrito too. Mhm. Great. So hopefully that'll stick. And an update that's not on this list, the Zan's Market location, we've been talking about off and on for the better part of a year. They are conducting some tenant improvements for a restaurant use, and they're looking at a potential sushi restaurant option.
So where's this?
Zan's Market is on Solano, and I can't at something or other.
Got it.
Pomona or Ramona.
At Solano and Carmel.
Carmel.
Or that. What about the ramen place ramen kitchen just closed? Do we have
So
a-
it's not closing, it's converting. It's spelled D-U-O Grill House, D-U-O. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
I have a couple.
Yes.
So, all the way at the other end of Solano, there's been a place on the corner of Ordway and Solano that's been vacant for a couple months now, a few months, and they had a shop there that did they did programming for digital cartoon type things, you know, like the animation, and that they closed. The guy moved to Hawaii. They couldn't handle the rent. The people who tried to pick up the business were stocked with a $4,500 a month rent, which was, they were about at $35,000. And so the place has been vacant. Jerome Blanks has also been vacant. They wanted about $4,300 for his space.
How
And
big are these spaces? Do you know?
that one's like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that would be about maybe 1,250 square feet, maybe 1,300, I don't know exactly. And so they have apparently reduced the rent on that to $3,900 a month. And in Jerome Blanks, they've also reduced the rent on it because they couldn't rent. So they're down to about $3,900. So what that tells me is that the boom days for like limitless rent charges and increases are over. People are like,
Sorry, I couldn't really hear totally, but is it residential you're talking about?
no, none of
Just
these are
commercial.
residential. Yeah, the house that
Square foot, most of square foot per?
don't know exactly, but it's a house, so it's the equivalent of about 1,250 to 1,300 square feet, and it's got a little space downstairs too on the ground floor,
And what were they asking?
and they were asking 4,500. Couldn't get it, so then they're down to 39, and Jerome Blanks is down to 39 as well. They were asking 43 or something like that,
Do
42.
you know how big Jerome Blanks is?
It's probably about, again, maybe, it's well over 1,000 square feet, maybe 1,200. It's the back floor, back part of that floor.
In the Bay Area, these prices don't seem totally out of whack to me.
Yeah,
They
3 and a
seem
quarter,
pretty
yeah.
reasonable compared to other locations not too far away.
Yeah, it's a question of what Solano bears. I mean, that's what.
Okay, anything else?
Oh, the subway closed across the street from me, and there's beaucoup work going on there. So I don't know what's going in, but yeah, won't be closed long. I mean, they're already working on it.
So that's in Berkeley, but across the street from Albany.
Yeah, it's in the Berkeley side of the street.
All right, any other? With that, then we're at the sorry?
Oh, I do. I'm sorry. I wanted to give you a quick update on new fire codes that are on the horizon. In California, building and fire codes are updated every 3 years, and we're approaching that next January 1st. The new series of codes will kick in statewide, and usually this is pretty boring government work, adopting building codes. But this year, there's more energy in where. I shouldn't use the word energy. There are major changes to use less energy, to more energy efficient and reduce the use of natural gas in buildings. And we're also, the fire department is looking carefully at updating and clarifying their standards. And it affects the business districts in particular because I think in recent years there have been some confusion about when fire alarm systems or fire sprinkler systems are required to be upgraded in existing buildings, and that comes up from time to time on Solano Avenue and San Pablo Avenue. So we're working with the fire department to make it really clear, first of all, what the code says, and then from the fire department's perspective, the fire alarm systems are very important. They would like every commercial building in the city to have an alarm system that is monitored so that when the alarm goes off, we get a call and they can go out and get to it before it's a serious problem. So you can expect to hear more about that over the next few months, and be happy to provide more detail as it becomes available. Probably be taking something to City Council in November or December with this.
Would that be something that would be applied to existing buildings and existing businesses, or would it be just prospective?
It would be probably, well, it's a policy decision for the council ultimately to make, but I believe the fire department would like to see, as a new business goes into an existing building, an alarm system go into that space at the same time, or into the building, depending on the particular details. And there are a lot of buildings that don't have alarm systems today. So we don't hear about it until somebody drives by and calls us on 911 and say there's smoke coming out of a building, is the problem that they're having. And this would address that concern.
This is a big expense to small businesses. When we rebuilt our store on Solano, we had to put in a system and chose to finance it or extend our payments out over time with Bay Alarm. And it's like $800 a month or something for a long time. So it's not inexpensive to do this. It may be cost prohibitive for some people to move in, I think.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
So I was just saying that perhaps the fire department could look into potential grants or something that might be available to small businesses, or, businesses that need to upgrade certain types of things. I know sometimes there's things like that available.
Yeah, if there's a need, if it find out to be a need, we can research that.
A lot of the businesses on Solano would not be able to.
Yeah,
Okay.
It would kill them.
exactly.
Perhaps the planning department can send crews out there to work for free on putting them in.
You wouldn't want that.
It would be nice for people when early on in the process to know about this potential cost.
I completely agree with you. It's part of the frustration that businesses have as they negotiate the terms of their lease, and then they're coming into us after the deal is done, and then they learn about this from the fire department what they feel is like the last minute. And yeah, that's a hard piece of news to get when you're at what you think you're close to the end of the project.
But sorry, is it triggered by the tenant improvement or is it triggered by the occupancy change?
Right now, the code could be interpreted either way. What will be proposed by the fire department is language that makes it clear that a new business so it could be changing from one restaurant to another restaurant, and that change in business would trigger the requirement for an alarm system.
Do they ever, does the fire marshal and the fire department ever take away any of these things that they impose on people? They just seems like they accrete every time more and more stuff.
That's the nature of codes. They tend to be a collection of every bad thing that ever happened to a building, and code books get thicker and thicker because every 3 years they've got a new list of things that they've got to deal with. Someplace in California there's been an experience, and so it goes in the code book, and it gets bigger and bigger every time.
Wouldn't that be a cost that the commercial property owners themselves should absorb? Because if they're the owners, would, excuse me?
It's negotiated.
Triple net leases, it all falls
Right, well,
under.
yeah, they want to pass it on to the tenants, but wouldn't there be a way that, I mean, I don't know what the law is around that, but that seems like if you own a commercial property, or probably multiple commercial properties, because most people commercial property owners own a lot of them, that should be something that you would be expected to provide. Like when a tenant leaves, then it's just like you have to provide the right pipes for the water to come through.
Some cities, I believe, do place the onus on the property owners. Like I think in Oakland, the soft story parking situations that are underneath a lot of apartment buildings, that falls on the owners. Whether they pass it on through the triple net charges and things, I don't know.
So who decides what the owners for each city, what the owners are required to do versus what the tenants are required to do?
Historically, we haven't gotten into the middle of that. The triggering moment for us these days is when someone comes in for a business license, or they come in for tenant improvements. They're starting their business, and they just, they need to do whatever, usually pretty modest changes inside the building, and then there's all of a sudden this news. And so then it's a negotiation. As the alternative would, I suppose we could say on a date certain, every property on the street, every commercial property in the city needs to be upgraded. And that notice goes to the property owners, but the property owners might, if it's a triple net lease, might kick it over to the tenant anyhow. It all depends on the terms of the deal. That's an area that is not clear, but the idea would be a new business, not necessarily a change in use.
And also to remember, like any of the requirements imposed by the fire department will require, usually a lot of the times, the sprinkler systems, which require larger pipes coming in from East Bay Mud, and then their backlog is usually around 6 to 9 months to get those pipes put in place.
So that is also less frequently an issue, a requirement, but it can be. And that's usually in situations where there's a mix of occupancies, and there's commercial and residential in particular, the places where they want to have a fire suppression system, not just an alarm system, so the fire gets out quickly. And that's the bigger deal when you're living above a restaurant or something like that. But at this point in time, at least at the staff level discussions, we're not talking about requiring a sprinkler system for a change in a business. That would be if there was a change in the type of business, that there was a more hazardous activity in that business, in that building, then maybe that might become an issue at that time.
Does that include change of ownership in the same business? Like if I bought Little Star Pizza and it was still Little Star Pizza, that would also trigger that?
That was a discussion we had this morning. We need to figure that out. I don't think the intent is to be You know, there are different scales of what a change in business is, and we need to see what other cities are doing and get a good answer to that. I don't have that yet.
So we're trying to bring in a variety of different kinds of businesses, and we want it to be robust. Maybe then we need to, as a committee, make a recommendation about what we do pass on to, not necessarily just for this specific issue of fire alarms, but it seems like the property owners are probably more able to take on a big cost like that, rather than the young people that are trying to do their bakery or whatever.
I think ultimately it's negotiations. So what you need is an educated tenant to understand what the ramifications. So they need to do their due diligence. And the problem is, I think what's being daylighted is that this is new. And how do you educate and communicate that? So the tenant, before they sign the lease, can negotiate that with that landlord. So when does this go to city council at some point?
Probably November or December.
Okay.
We have a lot of work to do on it.
So maybe we can make this an agenda item. You can update us, and we can provide some input to it. But I think from a committee perspective, I think our job would be how do you educate that and not get us necessarily in the middle of the negotiations per se. If there's any other comment on this, then we can move on.
Well, I just had a general question under the announcements section before we move on from that section, but I can wait, or I can shoot it across now. And it's not my intention to put anybody on the spot, so if the city staff doesn't have answers, but what classifies a pop-up parklet as, quote, successful, or any parklet for that matter? Is it that people were there? What exactly makes it
Successful was my word, so I didn't read that anywhere. And I didn't go, but I heard that it was successful in that it seemed like that there were a lot of people who utilized the space and were excited about it. And so we heard that people were excited, so that's why I used that term.
So while that was happening, were there people, and this, of course, I'm the devil's advocate, were there people monitoring traffic patterns, observing general safety issues, or just the feel good of like, people liked it?
I wasn't there. For the people who were there, I think everyone seemed to give positive feedback. No, we didn't monitor traffic patterns. It was.
Cool. All right, cool.
John?
It wasn't my intention to, yeah.
Yes.
In addition to the people who were there very happily and enjoying it, there were 3 suicides by drivers who couldn't find parking spots.
Jeez, okay.
Tragic. Any other comments to the announcements?
A thank you for the report, by the way.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, then we'll move on to number 5, which is presentation by committee member Alan Kane regarding
Should I just go up to the
2019
podium?
Solano stroll.
If you want to just speak there, and I've got it here, and you can just tell me when to.
Yeah, I can go to the podium.
I'm still going to have to do your slide.
Okay, I'll be super quick. You can just go to the next one. Since 1974. So thank you. Just really quickly, my name's Alan, the Solano Avenue Association. I'm the paid director of the association. Later, we'll be distributing a list of the volunteers who are on our board of directors who deserve lots of credit for what they do. So the Solano Avenue Association has a 15-person voluntary board of directors and 1 beyond full-time staff person. I average about 55 hours a week during the course of my year. The SAA board is made up of diverse professionals. Most are business owners on or near Solano Avenue. Members of the SAA help fund the cost of the festival while enjoying benefits of being a member of the association year-round. The Solano Avenue Stroll is a free street festival held in Albany, Berkeley, California. It's one of a few festivals statewide that cross into 2 adjoining cities' jurisdictions. That's actually a very rare thing for an event production team to work with 2 jurisdictions. Every second Sunday in September, shortly after Labor Day, and known famously in the Bay Area as one of the most traditionally loved community events. Great. How? The primary organization of the festival takes roughly 600 hours, which does not include the volunteer hours. That's roughly 3 months of full-time work. In 2018, Should have corrected that. Hard expenses for the festival were just over $35,000. However, we are going to be distributing shortly our expenses for this year, so it kind of supersedes that. And in 2018, ancillary expenses were $18,000. They were just about the same in 2019. Sorry, I didn't update the presentation. And finally, why? To bring fans and consumers both locally and from neighboring communities to enjoy existing businesses while showcasing any new businesses on Solano Avenue. Outside vendors are used to offset event costs to the SAA members. We locate them in locations along the avenue in non-business areas and in front of businesses who choose not to contribute financially to the event production cost. Remember, that's $53,000 from the last slide. It's actually gone up quite a bit since 2018. You can go ahead and run that. So numbers, this is really good stuff. So in 23, one of the biggest things I hear all the time about the stroll is just like a bunch of out-of-town people, if that were a bad thing. But actually, we've done 2 studies. We've set up banks of teenagers on Solano Avenue in 2013. And basically, they just asked everybody what their zip code were. Just stood there with a clipboard and just did a quick litmus of where people are coming from. And in 2013, when we did that, 73% attended from Alameda County, 22% from Contra Costa County, and so we're always looking for ways to connect with West Contra Costa County through marketing and that kind of thing. We found that Berkeley people have a tendency to be in their neighborhoods, but the people that are in West Contra Costa County, El Sobrante, Pinole, tend to migrate southbound when they want to party because you've got a bridge northbound that creates a mental block. The top zip codes of origin in 2013 were 94706, 94707, and 94530. So anybody that says at this event that the local people don't come to this, it's just simply not true. The event features almost 200 nonprofit organizations who are centered in the local area, 75 performance groups, and it's once a year tourist level foot traffic. There's a specific definition of what tourist level foot traffic is, and we meet that criteria. 150 crafters who hand make their items. And before we move on to the next slide, this is at what point we would normally take some questions. And like I said, I am going to distribute some papers before we start discussing the event. But can you actually go to the media slide? That's a presentation that's there. It's the second presentation. Yay. So those posters, by the way, were the first one ever done, and then, of course, the latest poster. So quite a lot of press this year. Having the San Francisco Chronicle call it the perfect day. That's significant. Perfect is a really strong word, and we're glad that they associated perfect with the stroll. The next slide talks about the East Bay Times. I mean, this is just kind of a promo. So it's just, given the fact that there's a lot of competition event-wide, there's a lot of events during the stroll on the second Sunday of September now, including a Pride Festival that came online 3 years ago. The Pittsburgh Seafood Festival is now a 2-day event. Vendors love 2-day events. They don't like 7-hour events. It's very challenging for them. And then the next slide, this is kind of a funny one. From the Vancouver Sun, the Solano Stroll. And not only did it make it into the Vancouver Sun, but if you could skip to that next slide. This is basically, so what happens is this. The Berkeley Convention and Visitors Bureau, when they have a major event like the Stroll, they blast it out through their networks. And of course, there was an agency that picked it up. They actually had quantified, because it was in 3 outlets. So it was in the Vancouver Sun, Ottawa Citizen, and Calgary Herald. And then basically they were able to quantify this in terms of money and the number of people that have seen this article. Don't know if anybody's going to read this and visit California next year for the stroll, but it's fascinating that this is one of a few times in my career that the event has made international news. So that's pretty exciting. So I'm going to ask Jennifer to hand out the papers that are over there. So basically, I'm just going to hand you 3 documents. The first one is the list of our board of directors, because they deserve a lot of credit, particularly Jennifer Hansen Romero, who people think is being paid as my co-director for these events. So she puts in a lot of volunteer hours into these events. The second page talks about what we do as an organization. So basically, the Solano Stroll is our cash cow, and we do an assortment of things with the money that we make from that event, ranging from manage a shower program that happens at the Albany pool every Friday, to graffiti removal, to an assortment of things that are detailed on page 2. Now, I did promise you that there would be a page with our expenses of the stroll, and that's the last page. Like I said, I was lazy about updating the 2018 PowerPoint slide. However, I was not lazy about providing some of our basic expenses. It has been said by city administration, it's just kind of a word around the campfire. There hasn't been any quantifiable numbers in terms of what the stroll costs the city to produce. The city of Albany gives us a $5,000 cash grant, and then they give us in-kind services, meaning there are policemen there on a Sunday, firemen there on a Sunday, city staff there on a Sunday, and they do not bill us. The number I've heard floated on several occasions is in the $30,000 range in terms of personnel for that day. And I contend that if you're ever going to throw a festival, $35,000 is a bargain, because as you can see, under line 20, under the 2019 expenses, the event costs us $38,000, and this does not cover everything. This list does not cover everything. It's just some of the expenses that are there. The only reason why some of the smaller stuff or the lower dollar stuff is there is to remind us to secure those items prior to the event, as we're getting estimates from the bus company and everything that we're doing in January. And so basically we just use this as also a checklist of who we've contacted. So yeah, $38,000 in really basic expenses. I contend that events-based production is a fantastic way of promoting a street festival or a district, because an event, I can guarantee you there's going to be 100,000 people on Solano Avenue Sunday, September the 13th next year. And no other form of advertising, newspaper, television, etc., can ever say, if you run an ad in our paper, we're going to have 100,000 people on your street that Sunday. So events are what bring people to the street. Well-executed events bring a lot more. Free, well-executed events bring a lot more. And this year we were very happy to have our attendance numbers where they were. Stephanie Sala?
I'm just curious what Green Mary is.
Very good question. So this year we were thrown an interesting twist from the city of Berkeley about 1 week before the event. And that was after Labor Day. So it was 4 business days before the event that we were told that our organization, our association, would be responsible for all environmental services in the city of Berkeley. You can see there was $1,000 given to the city of Berkeley this year for some dumpsters, and we paid Green Mary people to go empty out trash, sort recyclables, sort compostables, and put that in those dumpsters. Green Mary originally wanted $10,000. We worked closely with the city of Berkeley, citing, hey, we're 4 days away from the festival. We're not going to pay $10,000, and this was a negotiated fee. So, yeah, just a lot of money being thrown at us this year. And I do want to say, so the city of Berkeley has changed a lot in terms of how they produce street festivals and how they support them. It used to be that you would go to your local council person, and your local council person would have some funds that they would have set aside for projects in their district. So for many years, the Solano Stroll was given the $5,000 and a checkoff saying any city services that we provide to you on the day of the stroll, the city of Berkeley will take care of. That is no longer the case. So basically, the city of Berkeley is charging event producers in town for everything that happens: police, fire, medical, etc. The 4th of July, which has been going on in the city of Berkeley for quite some time, was told yesterday at a meeting that next year when they produce this event, it's going to be $85,000 for police and fire. Lisa Bullwinkle says there's no way it can come up with that money, walked out of the meeting, and there will be no 4th of July next year. The number we're expecting for the stroll will be over 100,000, maybe in the $150,000 range, and it will be at that point that I go find another job, because there's no way that we're going to be able to come up with that kind of money. What's happening, our cities are looking at their budgets, and there's fun, recreation, and then homeless, and a lot of other serious issues going on. And like the arts in the world, parties, street festivals, they'll be going away. And that's just a sad reality of life. There are some that say government has spent the last 20 years keeping you inside your homes, dividing up the community, don't go anywhere. No more 4th of July. I'm not sure what the future of the stroll is either, but.
Maybe it's an opportunity for Albany to open up the bulb and take that festival away if Berkeley doesn't do it.
Yeah. But anyway, it's a scary thing, and I can see where cities, have only so much money, and they have to prioritize it. So this, it'll be interesting to see what happens next year. This event.
You taking questions now?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, yeah.
Did you want to finish something first?
Yeah.
No, I was just happy with the press. I was ending on a high note. You've got some documentation in front of you that you can check out later. But
So I would say a couple of things. One, I think I was board president the first year we went to the city of Berkeley and asked for money to help put on the stroll. And the city of Berkeley did. And the pitch we made to them was pretty simple. It's that we bring to the city the kind of event that increases the vitality of the urban core. And you want to be able to celebrate your urban core. And you can't be tasked with solving every other social ill and problem before you can do this. It's the same thing with other kinds of city services like park services or recreation services. Yes, there are numerous problems that cities have, but it's not the job of each particular thing to solve all the problems first before you're able to bring your service to the city. So the Solano Stroll brings a sense of celebration to the urban core, which is what you want. It's the antidote to sprawl, and it's what makes cities a lively place. So the city of Berkeley may be looking at it in an odd way. As to solutions for the stroll, if they were to ask, for example, or demand $100,000 in Berkeley, then the solution would be the street belongs to Albany all the way up to Tulare. So you just stop the stroll there, and those 6 or 7 blocks north or east of that would not be included. And that would take care of it. But it's crazy to think that the city of Berkeley wouldn't want to help. I mean, I understand that, yes, there's cost to it, and you have staff coming out, but that's why you have staff, and that's why you have celebrations. You want to be able to celebrate having the city as a place to go, that you don't have to leave town to have a celebration.
So I agree with you. We were told at a meeting, the same meeting. Right. We're kind of swimming in dark waters here. But I will say, when there is one individual that's in charge of all the events that happen on public thoroughfares in the city, and basically she had indicated to everybody in a room with all the event producers just the other day that with the election coming up, that Berkeley is a hub for political activity, riots, and that kind of thing. And she said that their priority in 2020, it was not going to be throwing city events and helping event producers do their thing. It's going to be dealing with the election year that they figure is going to bring a storm in their direction. So it was very clear. She has no concern. They have no concern about doing events. They're gearing up for this election. Events are costing them money and resources, and they'd just rather not do it.
So instead of having celebrations, they'll restrict themselves solely to fistfights between.
That's exactly how I walked away. I was like,
one
wow, their
radical group
focus
and
is on
another radical
riots and not parties, right? Right. And just to be clear on what we're talking about, we probably weren't. So the city is saying, look, we're going to charge you for all of this stuff. You need to apply for a grant from a pool of money in November, and you will know if you get that money in May. Well, we begin our registration process in April. We begin our membership registration process in February. If in May they tell us, oh, there's no money, we can't go back and ask the businesses on Solano, hey, can we increase your dues? This year, when the city of Berkeley presented us with a $13,000 bill 4 business days before the Solano stroll, we actually contemplated, do we contact all the vendors and ask them for another $300? Is that what this has to look like? Because you just can't drag that money out of the air. And so that's why it's important in January and February that event producers be able to budget out their year. But Berkeley has built a system that is almost impossible to do that. And I think,
Thank you.
like Jennifer said, it's to weed out
Thank you.
festivals. Yeah.
Is there other questions from the?
Sorry to go negative there on the end,
No,
but it is
not the
something
end.
that's on the top
Not
of
the
my
end.
mind. After that meeting with Berkeley, I didn't sleep that night.
Right, understandable. I had a question.
Sure.
So just so I understand the numbers, so 38,000 was the expenses that were absorbed. That's for both Albany and Berkeley costs, right? And then if Albany and Berkeley were unable to provide the in-kind, what would the expenses be then?
Well, you'd be looking at, Berkeley's estimating their in-kind at 125, Albany estimating their in-kind between 30 and 40. We'll call it 30, we'll call it 120, $150,000.
In addition, so essentially it's $188,000 expense
Yeah,
at this point.
yeah.
And how much does the event make? Is that
We zero out at the end of the year,
what's that?
right? We zero out.
My question is, how much does the Solano stroll make, excluding the hundred?
About $69,000, which is my salary.
Okay, so just simple math. That, to your point, it's not financially feasible.
No, not at
like
all.
from a-
And the reality, too, is this, and I've said this before, too, what we do is for the love of the street, frankly. Jennifer volunteers an inordinate number of hours towards the production of this event. Robert Chasty himself MCs the event all day and does a lot of production. So people are doing this for the love of the community. I'm making $70,000 a year, which is $50,000 less than an office manager in San Francisco. So what I'm doing is for the love of the district. I pick up its trash. I lose sleep when there are problems facing our association. So the reality is there's a lot of love going into this, and if at the end of the day it doesn't happen, it's just going to be a really sad thing. It's going to be a really sad
No,
thing.
it's obvious the community, the outcomes or the intangibles. It's all. I just was curious about
And
that.
I do want to bring up one thing, and I hesitate to bring it up. Obviously, security concerns and the safety of our festival guests are paramount every year. Obviously, with some public incidents prior to the stroll, in fact, just several weeks before the stroll, there were enhanced security measures taking place at the event. Those security measures in the future are going to compound the cost of this event. So even the $120,000 estimate that we got, once they start talking about doing camera drones and some crazy stuff to keep the public safe, those numbers are going to skyrocket.
Great. Well, I personally thought the event was fantastic, probably one of the best at least from my memory. So congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that.
If you didn't like it, we'd give you a refund on your ticket price. Free.
It was a great event. Anything else? Yes.
Yeah. So the indication that you're getting that this is going to cost an insane amount next year, is that all from the staff level? This hasn't gone before Berkeley City Council or anything like that?
So all the event producers have a meeting at someone's house next Friday. We've gotten council people involved, and the same council people that we've contacted to get involved have given us the speech of money. Their cities have different priorities now.
And just spitballing here, but
Yeah,
have you guys
go
thought, you said 75% of the people who attend this are from Alameda County and are from around here and are from Berkeley.
In 2013, yeah.
Right. I'm betting that if you told a lot of these people that Berkeley has said that they're just going to spend all their money on other things and that they're going to basically cancel the stroll in Berkeley, they wouldn't take too kindly to that and might show up at some city council meetings. So I'm wondering if you guys thought of exploring trying to mobilize.
I'm too old for that fight. I mean, I want to work for this festival, but I'm not at the point in my life where I want to fight for it and go to Berkeley City Council meetings. If you've ever been to one, they end at 1 a.m. and I'm just too old. I'd have a easier. I hate to say that, but I'm not going through that much effort.
Right.
It's a square peg round hole situation, and I'm not going to spend a lot of resources.
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh,
And
you can
also,
ask
we
yourself-
also have some red bags too. We'd like to
You
distribute.
can ask yourself a question if you want as a committee member.
Pass them to you?
Any
Actually,
questions from?
I have one question.
Sorry.
Sorry. Do you feel like do you have a sense of this year's attendance levels versus other years? Is it?
Yeah, so Berkeley Berkeley Fire Department gives us an estimate. I found out it was basically just by taking a block and dividing it up. I thought they were using some cool measuring witness. So it was 220,000,
Thank you.
I think, which is a pass-through number. So street capacity is 100,000. So 200 people passed through. Not only is area-wide competition getting more intense, slightly lower because of security concerns. I mean, I spoke to several parents in Albany who really felt uncomfortable about going out for the stroll, which was shocking to me, but I don't know.
So how does that compare to last year or the year before?
It was down 20,000, roughly.
And I think sometimes it's actually in our best interest to have it a little less attended, because certain times people come to a stroll and they're like, oh, it's too crowded, I can't even move, blah, blah, blah. This felt very fluid, there was enough crowds in the right places, and you could still pass by and move through pretty easily.
One quick comment on that. So yeah, when the street is absolutely packed, the vendors do well, right? The food vendors, it's just mass money passing hands. But when the festival's a little bit lighter, rather than looking down and making sure you're not stepping on someone's dog that doesn't belong there, you're actually able to see the businesses and see the things around you. So you're not navigating the event, you're strolling it when the crowd is lighter. So we win either way. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead for discussion item 6.1, review of messaging for marketing materials.
Yeah, so in response to the marketing subcommittee, we've developed a very draft brochure, and the intention would be to attract businesses to Albany, and that's sort of like the first step of our creation of marketing materials. And so I'm going to pass this out with the caveat that I hope you don't read too much about in the text because, well, one, we don't have a lot of time for you to do that, but two, we don't have, it hasn't been vetted, and it's a rough draft. But I'm curious your thoughts on if this is where you'd like us to go.
We should get Jennifer appointed to this committee.
Pull it up on the screen too.
Get Jennifer appointed to our committee.
So the first, are we making comments on this? Are we taking turns, or should I just launch on it?
What about comments next time?
I mean, given
So the print
time-
quality is not good. This is just a draft.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you're interested in sort of the format in general, if it seems to make sense to you. So I can just go through that quickly. Sort of a why Albany section of what's great about our location, transportation information, some information about our community in general, some some information about the Albany customer base. I took this page from the Economic Development Strategic Plan. I actually don't like the text, but I put it in here in case you think it's a good idea to have it in here.
Businesses are going to want to see more demographic information, like the ages and the incomes.
Yeah, and that's in the community profile, but we could highlight it more specifically, perhaps.
And also keep in mind, we're redoing the census this year too, so those numbers are going
Yes.
to change
Right.
drastically.
Might want to make it like a table. Usually these things have tables with that
Yeah.
info.
Yeah.
I think maybe it would be best if we take this back,
Read it.
let's look at it, and then we can come back to next month and bring you comments. In a second. What's that? Okay.
Well, can we make comments, or we just no?
Well,
earlier?
I'm just wondering, you know, it's kind
Oh.
of, I mean, it'd be like,
There was a great
Yeah, this Albany
picture
sign is
that
horrid.
had- it was next to Zaytoon, and it had the Albany Theater sign. Was it posted? Who posted it? The city? It was really good.
Yeah. So
Facebook or
this Albany
Instagram.
sign that they hid under the BART tracks belonged down at the park by the freeway, because currently when you drive by Albany, you have no idea it's Albany. So they took the one option, the one thing that they could have done to let the world know where Albany is, and they tucked it under the BART train. So you can't even see it if you're on BART. We've taken a marketing sign and hid it.
So the Albany Loop is highly controversial, and I don't recommend that we have it on the cover. This is, again, just
Please, this is just...
just a placeholder. But thank you for your feedback.
yeah, so I like to just recommend we take it, review it.
If you're reviewing it, I'd prefer to send you an electronic copy, because then we'll have a little time to make sure that the verbiage is accurate.
Yeah.
Did you put
And-
this...
Go ahead.
So did you put this together?
I with an intern's assistance, we had an intern look at other marketing brochures, and he made some recommendations for what should be included, and then I.
It looks great. It's a great start.
And-
It's awesome.
Sorry. Go ahead and,
No, I just said it was great. I just want to thank her for...
okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking through here and I can't find a picture of 5 little monkeys.
Well, that's another conversation, perhaps for your next meeting, on what would be appropriate, the appropriate way to decide which businesses get featured
Right.
in this. You know, I think that's an important conversation to have.
And then I think from our
criteria,
committee, our marketing committee, I think we actually had specific recommendations, so maybe we can revisit that. and
Yes,
how this
please.
works into it. So Aaron, maybe you and I can spend a little time on that, and then work with you before the next meeting perhaps, but the whole committee can go and weigh in on this as well.
Yeah, and my plan is to engage a graphic designer. This is, again, so I wanted to get your feedback to know where we were going before I engaged a graphic designer to create something.
So if it's okay from this committee, if you go ahead and make your comments, but from a subcommittee perspective, we'll go ahead and look at it too.
That sounds great.
Is that okay?
Yeah, and if you want to, I think it's appropriate, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong in terms of the Brown Act, but I think it's appropriate for people to email me comments on this, because we'll
Just
bring
as
it
long
back
as
to
you're
you.
not emailing each other.
Right.
No,
So if
it's
you want to email me directly, since we're bringing it back to you at a public meeting to look at, we can do it that way too.
Really quickly, I might suggest that you pick like a couple of different cities in the surrounding area and get their, what they provide people. I know the city of, and I brought this up years ago, the city of Alameda does a really wonderful job at encouraging businesses that have requested business licenses through that city, send this wonderful like welcome packet and stuff like that. So I encourage finding out maybe some of what other cities have put together just to compare apples to apples kind of stuff.
Yeah, great idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you don't want to mention the fault lines in something like this, right?
Yeah.
So you do
We're in
then
process.
want us to look at the content?
Sorry, what?
So we should look at the content then and just email it to you?
Sure, that's fine. Just know that this is a draft, and the piece about the fault lines we're planning to take out anyway. But yes,
Isn't that like transparency or something?
yeah.
Oh, this is great. This is a great start.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to 6.2, discussion of business resilience program.
So I have an update on the business resilience program, but I don't know, Jennifer, would you like to speak first? You don't have an update. Okay, great. All right. Well, so the city is working with the Frew Group. I don't know if you're familiar with Suzanne Frew. She lives locally, to develop a business disaster resilience strategy and plan. And the initial stage of that plan will be to include research and meeting with key stakeholders in the business community. So I don't know if that means this committee or maybe a subcommittee of this committee. We haven't had our kickoff meeting to decide exactly how that stakeholder engagement works, but certainly something that we'll bring back to your committee at some point, this topic. And the plan is for the Frew Group to develop a plan, a resource guide and toolkit for business resilience planning, and also conduct a business stakeholder awareness workshop. And we're still, this project is just getting started, and so most of this process will be figuring out what is the best way to reach the business community and how can the city provide resources for businesses to plan for business resilience and disaster recovery. So I don't have any of those answers yet, but that's the plan.
One second. Go ahead.
A long time ago when you presented business resiliency, I remember you saying something about how it encompassed a lot of different things, not just natural disasters. Is that still the case? It was, at that time, how to make businesses stronger, how to, maybe be resilient through an economic downturn, stuff like that.
I think that's a really good point. Thank you for bringing it up. In my definition of resilience, yes, but I actually haven't talked to the Frew Group about that yet. So in our kickoff meeting, we'll work on what definition for resilience we want to use. It sounds like you're supportive of having a broader definition of resilience.
In one capacity or another, I think it's important that as the Economic Development Committee that we try to support businesses in more ways and to be resilient in the broader definition or the broader sense.
I think that's useful.
Any other questions from the committee first? Okay.
That was actually part of where we had left off when we were working with them as far as the resiliency, is that my understanding from the Frew Group was that it was primarily what happens in any sort of a disaster, whether it be fire, earthquake, flood,
Disease. Oh,
whatever
really?
the case might be, but it was more of a disaster. And my biggest complaint, so to speak, was, well, our businesses are not necessarily resilient right now. We need to actually get them to be stable and productive and secure before we even assume that, a natural disaster, how you're going to recover from this. A lot of them would not recover at all. And it doesn't matter what kind of disaster plan. We need to make sure that they're stable and viable now first with those kind of tools that you're talking about. So that's kind of where I had parted paths with this project.
Thank you for that context. I was not part of that process, so that's helpful to know. I'll do my best to see if we can bridge those two definitions.
Any other questions on this? Okay. Thank you. 6.3 should be subcommittee reports. Business Improvement District,
We don't have a report.
Farmers Market.
We also do not have a report.
I have an update for that, which is that we'll have an update for you next month. We'll talk about the farmers
Great.
market and our plans for that.
We talked about meeting, but decided it was best to wait until we got the presentation from the city.
Okay, marketing and outreach, we're going to revisit that item and then reach out to you, Claire. And then the Arts Committee?
Yeah, so I went to their meeting last month. They are a very big and very active committee. It's really interesting. And I think we've made a match between the wall that Robert suggested, and apparently that was a site that they had been looking at for many, many years. The wall, it's the,
Old
Santa
Supercuts.
Fe.
yes, Old
at
Supercuts.
Solano.
Old Supercuts, basically Renee Wong's building.
Right. So they were very excited about that. And what else?
Did they follow up with John Worley?
About that?
Yeah, he's a world-famous muralist, and he
Oh.
lives in Point Richmond, and I talked to him, and he said, yeah, I'd be interested.
Okay. There's a whole procedure. They have to advertise it, and people need to apply. I think it's a whole formal thing they do. In fact, when I was there, they were doing that whole process. They had about 10 different samples of different works from different people, just for where the library is. Like for that lobby, when there's art up on the wall, they've gone through a whole process to pick the artist. It was super interesting. I didn't know it was like took that much time and the discussion. They discussed every single sample of work from each artist, just for the community center. So that was interesting. And then I'm just trying to think of what else. That was the main thing. I mean, they're very enthusiastic and interested in sort of keeping contact with us. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on that from the public? So moving on to number 7, future agenda items. Does committee desire? From the previous meeting, I had recommended or suggested that maybe we have one of the commercial brokers come and do a presentation on the market and get a sense of lease rates and how Albany's being perceived from a tenant perspective and even from a property owner perspective. So if staff needs assistance with that, I'd be happy to help with that.
Okay.
Okay.
I would love to get a update on the transit corridor proposed for San Pablo Avenue that was brought up. I think that could potentially have a very big impact on our San Pablo businesses if there's no parking.
Sure. I also have fire code conversation, and what did we just say? Farmers market.
Okay. Anything
So
else, Claire?
that's a lot of things, so we may have to spread it out over.
Yeah, it's just
over a
future
couple.
agenda items.
Yeah.
It's okay. Just keep a tally. Just maybe just if items aren't going to be on the next agenda, if you just list it to be
Sure.
scheduled, so we don't lose track of those.
Yeah.
All right. With that, any other comments? We're adjourned. Thank you.